of ours, a friend of our show and a friend of mine, a program director and host at We Act Radio in Washington, D.C., station that carries our show, activist with Black Lives Matter D.C., Kymone Freeman has written a new book. It's a novel about water, Nineveh, A Conflict Over Water is the title. WeActRadio.com is the website for the radio show, and Guerrilla Artist is Kymone's Twitter handle, also Black Lives Matter, BLK Lives Matter. Kymone, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we've talked on the air here. Tell us about the novel and the larger kind of the MacGuffin, the plot device that you're using about the conflict and crisis of water all around the world.
Well, first let me say, Tom, it's good to see you. I listen to you all the time, but I don't get to see you much.
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
here live at the Kennedy Center. They have a river run, month-long celebration of the world's waterways. And the sculpture I hope that your viewers are able to see is a water sculpture made out of plastic. So they basically are alchemists making something out of nothing. So they are celebrating the importance of World Water Day today, and this will carry on until Earth Day. Cool. So I'm honored to be here with you and join the ranks of authors. Nineveh is a conflict over water set in the future where water has been priced beyond affordability of the masses, forcing them to collect rainwater, which constitutes the new contraband. And the Global Water Corporation is a fascist institution that's taken over the last oasis on the planet. And then they do what they normally does, unrestrained capitalism at its finest. You know, I try to tell people, you know, we still spring chickens, Tom, but remember when we was kids and somebody asked us to pay for a bottle of water, we would look at them like they was crazy.
Yeah.
But just a few weeks ago, I went to a basketball game, a Wizards game. I paid $6.15 for a 16-ounce bottle of water. Wow. And as you know, gas is less than $4 a gallon. So they're charging more for water than gas today, right now. So my book is not necessarily fictitious if it's based upon reality.
There you go. We're talking with Kymone Freeman. He's the author of a new book, Nineveh, A Conflict Over Water. It's a very readable novel. It's a great story, but it gets around these larger issues. Kymone, I remember back, it seems like it's been at least a decade, because I remember talking about this on the radio, and I'm pretty sure I wrote about it in Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, which might make it more than 2 decades, actually, that a giant water corporation, I don't recall if it was Nestle, it might have been that big French one, had bought water rights in, as I recall, Quito, Ecuador. And what they did then was they banned people from gathering rainwater, and they were getting the police to enforce that ban?
Yeah, it was Bolivia.
Bolivia.
And,
you're right. Thank you.
And they definitely did that, but the people were successful in kicking them out. And so that's a success story. And I actually addressed that in the afterward in my book in a lot of detail. So that was a very real example of what can go wrong when we have unrestrained capitalism when it applies to these types of resources. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned Nestle, because we all know about Flint, Michigan, and even Detroit had a water crisis where they couldn't, the water bills were so exorbitant that a lot of people was getting their waters turned off. And you know what happens when your water gets turned off? Child Protection Services comes and takes your kids. So we have water refugees right here in America. Now, no one mentions the fact that Flint, Michigan, and Detroit, you're from Michigan, Tom, you know this, are a short drive to one of the largest fresh bodies of water on the planet, the Great Lakes. Yep. Okay? But Nestle pays a measly $200 a year to pump 1 million gallons of water a day out of the Great Lakes. Wow. So we don't hear this in our media because, as you well know, when bankers control, when they are in control, there's always going to be a debt. And when warmongers are in control, we never know peace. And as long as those elements continue to control our media, we'll never know the truth. So I love what you're doing, and I hope that I can contribute to that truth-telling here with this issue. Well,
yeah, I think so. We're talking with Kymone Freeman, his new book, Nineveh, A Conflict Over Water. Kymone, what's your take on the water situation in the Southwest here in the United States? I mean, Phoenix is one of the fastest-growing cities in America, and yet I'm hearing that large chunks of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, even Southern California may be looking at, major water crises coming along fairly soon.
Well, I would urge you to check out a documentary called The Grab. was featured here in D.C. at the D.C. Environmental Film Festival, and I learned so much. And they kind of focused on this issue, and I urge your viewers to check it out as well. It's called The Grab. In that documentary, there, investigative reporting, there's a Chinese company that is depleting a lot of aquifers in Arizona, and a lot of people's wells are running dry as a cause of that. But we shouldn't vilify China, because I learned also in that documentary that during the 50s, China faced a famine, and millions of people died. In fact, the president of China tells the story of him and his family having to eat raw pork to survive during that famine. No one came to their aid. So there is a rush to grab these resources. You look at the Colorado River is dried up, but you also have Wall Street buying up water rights as well. So it's not just a foreign government. This is happening all around. All these players are involved. But we basically need a national water policy, Tom. We can no longer sit here and let these imaginary boundaries divide us. We have to realize that we cannot negotiate with Mother Nature. We need a national water policy because what we currently have is not sustainable.
Yeah, I've been talking about, because railroads have been in the news lately, that our rail infrastructure should be considered part of the commons rather than being owned by a bunch of private corporations, and then they, crappily maintain it, and you get all these, 1,000 derailments a year and all this other stuff. It should be nationalized. But really, as important as rail infrastructure is to a country, without water, you go 3 days without water, you're dead. There is nothing more essential outside of maybe air to human life than water, and we treat water as a commodity that's subject to capitalism rather than as an essential aspect of human life. How would you change American policy with regard to water?
Well, I think that it's inevitable that it's going to change, because again, this is current in the absence of a national policy is unsustainable. So what I would like to see happen is what you just mentioned. We need to nationalize the basic infrastructure in America, and water should be recognized as a human right. And as such, we need to withdraw the profit motives that are going to exploit it when the crisis presents itself. Because if we're not able to change course, I would urge everybody to go to Miami South Beach and take a lot of pictures, because it will be underwater in 25 years if we don't do something differently. And so we're not going to be able to put a Band-Aid on this issue, and we need to, as Martin Luther King said, a revolution of values. And if water is actually a human right, if water is life, then we need to treat it as such. But unfortunately, we don't recognize housing as a human right or health care as a human right. So all these things are going to have to change if we're going to have a revolution of values in this country.
Very, very well said. Kymone Freeman, his new book is Nineveh, A Conflict Over Water, and available wherever fine books are available, are sold. Kymone, thanks so much for dropping by today. It's great talking with you again.
Always a pleasure. NinevehNovel.com. Water is life. Do something.
Okay, Nineveh Novel, Ninevah novel.com. Check it out. Thank you, Kymone.